Hastings, Chikoko, C40 Managing Director of Regions and Mayoral Engagement, and I also provide oversight for the Africa region as the Regional Director for Africa. Great. So C40 is a network of mega cities, and because of that, we also partner with like-minded or like-purposed organizations. South African Cities Network, just from its name, is also a network of metros in South Africa. So we work together, since we are serving the same municipalities or cities, we work together to share insights and to share experiences. All right. The South African Cities Network was established for a purpose. And my view is that it was established to fill a knowledge gap, looking at where the municipalities were at that time, and also looking at the trends of urbanization in South Africa. So South African Cities Network has been that important organization to go out there, understand what the metros in South Africa need, and look at the kind of lessons or knowledge they need to actually fill the gap and enable them perform better. So through the research that the network does, through some other ways of encouraging dialogue and exchange of ideas, the South African Cities Network has been a source of inspiration, a source of technical leadership, and also really a source of transformation. So South African Cities Network has supported municipalities in South Africa in terms of how they plan, to ensure that planning is not just based on emotions, but it's based on facts, it's based on knowledge, it's based on data, it's based on science. But also, it's one thing to just to have knowledge, it's another to actually apply it. So I've seen over years South African Cities Network really moving beyond just providing the municipalities with knowledge, but also helping them apply it. And really, we have seen the Cities Network getting closer to municipalities in South Africa, trying to inspire solutions that are needed depending on the challenges of the day, and try to really work with the cities to actualize those solutions or co-create those solutions. I think I can't also stop reflecting on South African Cities Network without talking about the policy influence at different levels. We have seen Cities Network present in policy dialogues. We have even seen Cities Network present in South African Parliament, trying to ensure that the insights, the experience is actually informing legislation in South Africa. The starting point is to recognize that the challenges that the cities are facing in the world can be actually partly solved by just having the right political leadership in these cities. So the similarity, one of the similarities between C40 Cities Climate Leadership Group and South African Cities Network is to focus and target the political leadership. Both organizations they secure commitment. And that's the starting point, to ensure that the leaders are not there to play politics, but they actually internalize the agenda of a transformed city, a transformational agenda. They internalize it and they commit to it. That's what both organizations have been doing, C40 at a global level, and South African Cities Network really taking it now forward at the national level. So I see the relationship actually as a relay race, as we call it. So you have C40 getting the insights and the experience from a global network of cities, bring it down to South Africa, where we only have 5 cities as members, but these experiences need to reach a wider group of South African municipalities. So we then now pass on or exchange with South African Cities Network to take that wider. Now, let me reflect a little bit on the experience with the political leadership, looking at the journey that we have walked together. You know, we are in a world, especially when you focus on Africa, we are at that phase where our democratic space is opening up. Most African countries have transitioned from single party politics or dictatorships to popular politics that is characterized by voting, democratic elections, and also governance structures that sustain the fact that these political leaders need to represent the interests of the people at any particular time. This has made us depart from maybe the time we started, where some African countries had political leaders, or if we talk about cities, they had mayors, but sometimes for a lifetime. We had leaders that had served 30 years. Now, with this political space that is opened up with democracy, we have seen some regular or frequent changes in leadership. That is a challenge for any organization that targets working with leaders. Because of the political volatility, you are never sure whether the mayor that you are working with today will still be the mayor next year. Networks such as C40 and South African Cities Network have had to adapt fast and embrace the term political resilience. How do we ensure that what we have started with this administration will be sustained when a new mayor comes into office? That has made us really expand the focus in terms of the city or municipality political leadership, expand it from just focusing on the mayor to also look at the other political structures in the city. So going forward, we need to see more engagement with councillors, more engagement with council committees, more engagement with the council itself, besides the mayor. Because much as mayors change, the likelihood of losing 100% of the councillors is very slim. So when you actually engage the councillors or the council, when the change happens, you are assured of maybe 50 to 60% of the councillors retained. That ensures political resilience. When the new mayor comes in, the council that he or she finds has 60% of the people that have already bought into the transformative thinking that South African Cities Network was engaging the political leadership around. And then you ensure that the mayor will be guided both by the South African Cities Network, but also by council. Once the council and the councillors appreciate the notion of transformation that South African Cities Network is pushing, and when political change happens, and we are sure that 60% of the councillors remain in are remaining in the municipality, we are guaranteed that when the new mayor comes, he or she will work with political leadership within the city that has already bought into the idea of transformation. So when South African Cities Network engages that new mayor, it will not be just a lone battle, but the council will also be able to support that. One last point that I would like to encourage South African Cities Network to do more going forward, given this political volatility at the municipality level, is to engage political parties. This may be something that maybe is already happening, but we need to do more. And I say this because as this democratic space is opening, we are seeing increasingly, we are seeing municipal leadership that is characterized by coalition governments. Now, coalitions are really different parties coming together. By that, I can guarantee you the mayor is not his or her own person. There are interests from different political parties that are influencing what the mayor does, and if he or she does not align with what the coalition partners want, they will definitely remove him or they will remove her. So there is need for us to ensure that when coalition partners demand action from the mayor, they are already bought into the transformative thinking, so that what they demand from the mayor aligns with what South African Cities Network thinks is an ideal transformative thinking that South African municipalities need to embrace. Political parties do have think tanks. Let's get there with knowledge and insights. Political parties do have their own structure, some leads on specific issues. Are we talking about housing? There is a lead there. Let's make sure that that person understands what transformative urban housing looks like. So we need to go beyond just a mayor and look at what other influences are there on the mayor. We are living in a world that is now called a global village. The challenges that South African cities are facing are not unique or really peculiar to South Africa. We have seen that there are lots of commonalities in terms of the problems that mayors are trying to solve. Therefore, there is an opportunity to strengthen the connection between South African cities and the global community. So, to me, South African Cities Network should not just be closed in within South Africa. South Africa is not an island. It's part of a bigger community. And there is need for South African Cities Network as it supports the South African municipalities to actually connect with the global networks. To me, it may not necessarily mean South African Cities Network bring in member cities from other geographies. It may just mean South African Cities Network strengthening its engagement with other networks in other countries. I'm sure there are cities networks I'm just picking an example here, in Argentina. Yes, there is a city network in Ethiopia. There is a city network in Thailand. How do we ensure that these national networks are connected to form a global coalition of municipalities that can exchange ideas? I believe that we become efficient when we don't look for solutions that others have already found, only that we didn't know. The best advice South African cities can give to its member cities is from another city or city leader that is actually solving the problem or has already solved the problem. And South African Cities Network then can connect to ensure that the solutions they used are applied, but maybe before they are applied, they are adapted, applied to the South African context. That's the value I see in having South African Cities Network open up and look beyond the borders. Okay, so let me start by making it clear that climate change is unfair, is not just. I think that should be a starting point. Climate change is a problem that was caused by geographies or countries that are currently rich, but the impacts are felt most in poor countries, and mostly from emerging economies or developing countries, whichever terminology we want to use. When you bring it to a national context, we see that when those impacts, climate change impacts, play out, the rich that are in structures, building structures that benefited from the high-class engineering knowledge are not affected in the same way the poor. Some in shacks that had no proper engineering deployed into it. Others even homeless, not even having a structure. They're not affected the same. This is the injustice of climate change. Now, in focusing on resilience and sustainability, we need to engage in the spirit of collectivism, if I will use that word. No single government, no single entity can solve the challenges arising from climate change on its own. It's a collective responsibility, understanding all the groups that are impacted or affected by the extreme weather events, and working together to find solutions. What I would want to see South African Cities Network doing going forward. At the moment, there are some elements of that is happening, but I would like to see them do more. Is ensuring that all structures of decision making have access to the knowledge, insights, data, evidence that comes from the South African Cities Network. It shouldn't just end with the technocrats that sit in city administrations. It shouldn't just end with the mayor. It shouldn't just end with parliament. We need to go down. Whether it's an informal settlement, they need to get that knowledge down there and be able to use that knowledge to contribute to the bigger cause. You know, COVID-19 pandemic has taught us how connected we are. COVID-19 has also taught us how we have for many years left some pockets of our societies unattended, and really we have left them behind. We need to take that lesson and apply it to climate change and ensure that we don't leave people behind. They have the same knowledge, they have the same data, insights to take decisions that everyone else needs to take to address the pandemic. Of course, this will require South African Cities Network repackaging the knowledge more to suit different audiences. It will require South African Cities Network even package some of this information in different languages to reach those people. But whatever it takes, if it has to be done to address climate change, South African Cities Network is the best platform for that thing to happen. Talking about the broader civic group, the communities, whether they're in informal settlements, whether they are just in townships, there is one advantage that we have with this current wave of urbanization, which the previous waves of urbanization didn't have. And it's the fact that unlike the first waves of urbanization, the current one is happening in an environment that has empowered citizens. We may not have reached the maximum level of empowerment, but I can challenge you that the people that we have right now are more empowered than those that were there with the first and second waves of urbanization. So we have people that can demand what they want. We have people that if you don't bring basic services to their village or to their township or to their informal settlement or to their shack, they will mobilize. And whether it means they will block the road with tires that are burning so that the Jaguars and the Range Rovers should not drive, so be it, they will do it. That's empowerment. How do we harness this confidence? How do we harness this energy? How do we harness this vigor and vitality to actually bring it together with the political leadership, to find solutions and implement solutions for climate change. That's the challenge. Looking at the work that C40 CITES Climate Leadership Group is doing, and of course the work that South African CITES Network is also doing in the climate change and sustainability space, we are doing this because we want a future that is clean, a future that is natural, and a future that is inclusive. What I mean by this is, no matter what excuse you have, fossil fuels are not part of the future that we want. Just because we are in the situation that we are now, because of the fossil fuel deployment that happened in the past. So we want a future that transforms to cleaner sources of energy. Secondly, looking at this future that I have, we want to embrace a cleaner mobility in our cities. We need to reset the thinking and begin to get some of the old habits that we mistakenly abandoned, like walking in our cities. Can we make our cities safe so that some distances can be covered without using motorized modes of transport? Can people cycle in our cities? Can we have that future with infrastructure that make people who really enjoy cycling take their journeys using a bicycle? We would like to see a future with cities that manage their waste better. Can we reduce our consumption? And where we consume, can we really reuse and only send to the landfill that which cannot be sent? And can we have sanitary landfills that actually also manage or minimize emissions? We want a future that is resilient. And to be resilient, we need to ensure that we have resilient infrastructure, solid infrastructure, that would help us withstand the impacts of extreme weather events. But this infrastructure doesn't need to be gray all the time. We need to also go back to infrastructure that was provided by nature and embrace green infrastructure. Durban, for example, has a stream that passes through the city. If we can just reset that stream to its past glory and maintain that ecosystem, it can actually be the drainage for the city. But the future also needs to include everybody. So whatever we do to transition, it has to be just transition that does not impact on the well-being of the poor at the benefit of the rich. So we need to ensure that people are still employed. We need to ensure that livelihoods are safeguarded. Copenhagen, actually in Denmark, does rank high just because of the way they have embraced the notion of sustainability, and also because it's a safe and cycling city. Okay, it's Durban, and that's because of the forests that are in the city space. Sekela still ranks up there, but this morning I was actually listening to Sermon Tukudzi. I'm reading Sapiens. It's really a book about the history of humans. I'm trying to understand, where did we get it wrong? At what point did we become massive consumers of bushwalk? Because I want to interact with nature, not just the fauna, but also the flora. I think that's a difficult one, because I would want to fly and really just provide solutions all over the place. But at the same time, I would want to not be seen. I want to be like that invisible change maker. The challenges that South African cities face are becoming more complex. We need transformative solutions to address them. Political leaders and city residents need insights, knowledge, and data to address this. South African Cities Network, you have been doing well in placing the relevant knowledge, the relevant insights and data in the hands of decision makers. We need to do that more and ensure that the knowledge is applied with climate change, COVID-19, the energy crisis, and other challenges facing the world. South African cities are faced with complex problems that need transformative solutions. These solutions need to be driven by credible knowledge, data, evidence, and experiences from other cities. South African Cities Network has played this role successfully, placing the evidence, placing the relevant knowledge that an urban leader or practitioner needs to take decisions and to implement action.